What's up guys, Epic Tim here, welcome back, video number 7. If you caught number 6, you'll know that we've already got the axle welded up and in the car again. Next thing we need to do is pick a location to weld on our tow hooks. I'm thinking either down here or just right on the back brace somewhere. You guys tell me, if you watch this video in time, what you think is a better position. Whoa, okay, real quick insert to this video. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I posted. I said I wasn't going to do that to you guys, but we've had some issues. If you stick around to the end of the video, you'll see just what I'm talking about. And I thank you so much for the support. But with that said, let's talk a little bit about how some of the experiences were welding this together and trying to keep it from warping. I will tell you up front that we were not exactly successful on keeping this thing perfectly straight. What happened was, when we're welding this back brace on, we must have got a little bit too hot, and when the weld cools, it pulled this tube back. So we had to go through a process to try and heat up the front of the tube, hit it with an icy cold towel, and shrink that back down. I'd say we're pretty successful. It's not 100% perfect, but I think the axles will be just fine. Worst case scenario, the axles come in for this thing and we're gonna have to do a little bit of more straightening to make it work out. I'm satisfied at this point that we won't have to cut anything off and put anything back on to make it straight again, so that's good news. So here in the video you can see as we were going through and spreading the heat out for the welding. So it took me about 3 days after work to weld up about an inch or so at a time in a couple different places per side of the axle. And then I will go back, let it cool, come back to it again, do another 3-4 inches per side, let it cool off for a while, hitting it with the temp gun, checking some different things, trying to make sure that we're not overheating too many areas. But with that said, we must have went a little bit overboard and caused that warping issue. So if you've never straightened an axle before, this was my first attempt at it as well. What you need to do is set it up, take your truing bar, get it inside of your center pucks for your diff, get that thing lined out the best you can. Hopefully one side is straight enough, and then get that on there. Heat that axle up red hot in the opposing direction, so the side with the biggest gap from the truing bar. And then as soon as you have a helper buddy, or if you're trying to do this yourself, good luck. Get that thing to expand about twice as much as what you would think it needs to come back. So if you have a 1/4 inch gap as an extreme example, you want to open that up to about a 1/2 inch gap, and then you'll hit it with the icy cool rag and it should come back about a 1/2 inch. Now with this axle back brace on here, we found that that was a little more difficult than not. So that's probably a better trick for a straight axle with no back brace on it. If you've got a back brace, you're going to run into a couple challenges like I did. We had to run and through and heat and cool this thing 3-4 times per side of the tube to try and get that thing lined out to where we felt it was going to be an acceptable position. So we'll find out in just a few weeks if that was successful or not. So several of you guys have been asking about ground clearance, ground clearance, ground clearance. So I set up a little bit of a demo here. We're going to go over a couple of different situations so you can get a little bit of an idea what your minimum ride height requirements are. So here's what I did. I've taken my safety stand and I've set it to the height at the bottom of the tire. I then pulled it out from under the tire a little bit to set this end of the level on. I took the level and I put it on the bottom edge of the pinch weld up here. Checked my bubble measurement, and I've taken that and duplicated it so the car's not perfectly level on the lift. Probably never will be, but that's fine. So I was able to recreate the same measurement though by putting this stand and adjusting the screw height to replicate what the bubble measurement is on the pinch weld. So now that's basically going to tell me that my ground clearance is going to be somewhere between the bottom of this and whatever I want to consider interference. So first things first, we're going to get these arms leveled off right about there, and you can see the ground clearance issue is going to be right in front of the tire. So if you're trying to go over a speed bump or something along those lines, this is going to be the lowest point that's going to hit first. So if we take then eyeball that measurement by getting up to the bottom of the arms and then coming down to see we're at about 4.5 inches roughly. Now this is going to be as close as I'm going to be able to get with the number of hands I have in the shop today. Now if we take that and we go from the bottom of the pinch weld, which is definitely an easier measurement, to the bottom of the level, we're at about 8.5, just a smidge over 8.5, which is going to be as accurate as we're going to be able to get today. So if we take that and we kind of consider what we were talking about before, from the bottom of where we calculated the pinch weld, which was right at the top of this truck arm, down to the bottom of that, we were at about 3.5. Now if we take that, the arm actually gets thicker as it gets down here. 4 should be a pretty good number, 4.5 maybe. We'll figure it out once we get on the ground. We'll get you some hardcore measurements. But moving up to the front of the car, if we're at the bottom of this cross member, we are at 8.5 still. Now if we look forward, we see that the bottom of the cross member has still got some additional room on it where the bottom of the interference is going to be. So that's going to be about another 2 inches off the bottom of the cross member. So if we're 2 inches below that, 8.5, where it puts us down to 6.5. And I say 6.5 inches of ground clearance is pretty good. I honestly think it's a little tall. At some point in time, we may decide to get some shorter coil springs. I think that that's going to be an excellent idea. So here's where I'm at with my current wheel and tire fitment scenario. We've got the axle in, we've got it centered out on the panhard bar, and by centered I mean from the tire to the inside of the stock wheel well. We have not tubbed this thing yet. We'll have videos on that in just a few months, I would think. So we took that and we've got a real tight clearance here from where the tire pokes out and that wheel tub. I've got about maybe 1/2 inch in the back and a little bit less than that in the front. So getting that thing dialed in has been somewhat of a pain. Now on the outside, I've got a heck of a lot more room. I can stick my whole hand up in here. But the problem that I'm having is I don't have any room left on my lug nuts. You guys check that out. I've only got about half of the threads in that lug nut themselves. So I don't feel safe driving that, even with this ripping 6-cylinder, making a probably all of about 82 horsepower. But what we can do is put a different spacer in here. So I don't have the drive flanges on right now. Those are 1/4 inch thick. So if I add those on with this spacer, which is 1 3/4 inches, I've got no room for lug nuts at all. If I drop it down to 1.5 inch spacer, I'll be back in this exact same scenario in fitment assembly. So what I really need to do is figure out if a thicker spacer is going to fit on here and give me a new set of lug nuts to ride on. So we've obviously also got to get this spring cross member and springs installed, and then we're going to be able to plate and weld up the rest of that, make sure our diff still clears. So we're going to put a new U-joint in our drive shaft and see if we need to cut anything down. I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, that everything works out right there and we don't have to do any more modifications. I'm betting though that it's gonna need a little something. So we also need to start planning for our exhaust. Basically what happens is this manifold comes down from right there and it snakes back through somewhere around this range, and then I gotta start cutting and modifying it as it goes up through here. Try and fit a muffler in there somewhere and kick a tailpipe out probably right in front of the tire. Something else that you guys may be interested in was this broken stud in the exhaust manifold. Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, really appreciate you on that one. But you can see we got it out, not too much trouble. The threads are in immaculate condition. Hopefully you can see that there. Let's get a little close up on a nice white background so you can see just how nice those threads came through. And to get our stud out, I'll show you what we did. Got our fancy little pointer here. We've got our manifold here. This is a stud that didn't give us any troubles, and then this is a stud that had broke off, not quite flush. It was sticking out about 3/8 of an inch. I took my oxyacetylene torch, or you could take a propane torch if you had one, and I heated all the way around the outside of this casting here. Hot, hot, hot. I got that thing as hot as I felt comfortable, probably right before it was going to start glowing red hot. And then I tried to keep as much heat off of the stud itself as I could, and then I just went around and around and around and heated from the backside as well. And what I'm trying to do to accomplish that is expand that housing so it's holding on tight with rust inside of there. You heat that housing up and it's going to start to open up a little bit like this. As long as we're not heating up the stud at a very even rate, it's going to try and break free a lot of that rust that's grabbing onto it really tight. And then I'm going to let it sit, and I'm going to let it cool. I recommend you let it cool overnight if you're going to do this on your own. I went ahead and I let this cool for several weeks. I started to heat this thing up a long time ago. I just did it the one time. So this stud was stuck in the block like so, and then I took my external bite screw extractor, one of these guys, and I hammered it onto the end of this stud. So I tap that thing on there, and then it's got a standard square drive on the back, so you can take your 3/8 inch ratchet or extension. I had 2 or 3 of those stacked up to get some elbow room out of the way, and that thing had enough grip on the inside of that to where it bit onto that stud and peeled it right out. So Bruce, you're off the hook for now. So what we've got to do in our next episode is start to figure out how to run our fuel lines and our brake line. Now the line's in pretty good shape. Probably going to reuse that as long as I don't find any damage up through the front. And under the hood, we've actually got a really trick tandem master cylinder set up. You're not going to want to miss how that thing works. So on our next episode, we're going to weld in this spring cross member for the last time, I promise you. And then we're going to get a little fancy and try and put this heart plate in. And then we're going to start prepping for paint. So we'll probably start a new episode on paint prep, but I want you guys' opinion. Message me, sound off in the comments below, please. Tell me what you think. I've got rust bullet for the base on everything on the car. And Greg, I think you're in luck. You've talked me into it. We're just going to go ahead and paint the whole floor of the car, everything except for above the transmission. We'll catch that when we pull the motor and trans out and get that front end installed. So let me know what you guys think. Should I go with black, white, or a combination of things? I've also got some clear in the corner. So rust bullet comes out, metallic silver. Here's kind of what it looks like right here. Or I could put a top coat on it. Now personally, I hate to get rid of this nice finish that's down here. This is the factory paint. It's doing fantastic. This is just dirt and dust, as you saw in one of the earlier episodes. So to clean all this stuff up, I know it's a lot of work. Bruce, I'm going to need that steam cleaner back and then go through and get everything squared away. Now I've already decided I want to blend that white and black together and make a nice battleship gray for the arms and the axle housing. Now what I haven't decided on is what should I paint all this new structure, this cross member and subframe connectors and the floor itself, or should I make them 2 different colors? Granted, that'd be a lot more work, but it would look pretty cool, but I'll probably be the only one to see it. We're not going to put this thing up at a Cars and Coffee with mirrors and glass and all kinds of fancy stuff under it. It just isn't worth it. Mind you, this is also going to be a street car, not a show car. It may go to a car show, but I'm not about winning trophies, especially in this current condition. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching Epic Tim. If you've got any questions, sound off in the comments below. Shoot me a message and we'll get you taken care of, have you a feature in the video of whatever you're curious about, because that's what we want to do here. Whatever questions you guys have about putting this kit in or other kits and other things, sound off, let us know, and let's all learn from each other. So with that said, if you need some more Epic Tim in your life, hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you like and share. Thanks and have a great day.